Greetings, poetry enthusiasts, and welcome to Westchester University. I'm so delighted to introduce myself. My name is Jen Bacon. I'm the Dean of Arts and Humanities here, and this is the 2025 Spencer Award Ceremony for Poetry. It is a beautiful spring day on our campus. It is National Poetry Month, and we are delighted to be presenting this award ceremony to you to celebrate these amazing poets from across the country. I want to start our award ceremony today by thanking Kean Spencer and the Spencer family for their unwavering support of poetry, for the ways they have honored the legacy of Ira Spencer, their mother, for her commitment to poetry and poetic form, and for the ways that they are celebrating up-and-coming poets, new poets, undergraduate poets, poets who haven't yet had the opportunity to publish. Their commitment to poetry makes everything that we do here possible. So thank you very much, Spencer family. This year, as many of you know, our undergraduate awards and our Wil Mills Chapbook Award were judged by esteemed poet Janine Joseph. We had the wonderful privilege of having her on our campus for a reading last week. I know you're just going to love meeting her when you do in a few moments in our award ceremony. The winner of the Wil Mills Award this year was Dawn Dupler, who's an English instructor at St. Louis Community College, and you're going to just love what she shares from that chapbook. We had an amazing array of undergraduate submissions this year, really phenomenal poets across the country sharing their poetry in our award ceremony. We had poets from the Milwaukee Institute of Art and Design, from UC Berkeley, from Stanford, from the University of Wisconsin, and I gotta say, because I'm the dean here, so proud that we had 3 poets from Westchester University submit poems that won award at the undergraduate level this year. What an accomplishment. This year, we were so lucky to have Major Jackson as the judge for our Donald Justice Manuscript Prize. This prize goes to a poet who's publishing their first full-length manuscript, and we had an amazing array of talent come in for those submissions. The winner of that prize, P. Scott Cunningham, will be sharing some of his work with you, and the name of his manuscript is Self-Portrait as the Eye in Florida. I know you're going to love it. Before I kick off the show and turn it over to this phenomenal array of poets so that you can hear from them, I just really want to thank our amazing intern, Brielle Parker, who helped us put together our awards presentation. Without her talents, none of this would have been possible. So for now, I'm going to let you kick back and enjoy the show. Thank you so much for joining us. P. Scott Cunningham is the author of Ya Te Veo, selected by Billy Collins as part of the Miller-Williams Poetry Series. The manuscript was also a finalist for the National Poetry Series. His poems, essays, and translations have appeared in The Nation, American Poetry Review, Gulf Coast, Poetry, A Public Space, Harvard Review, Michigan Quarterly Review, Monocle, and The Guardian, among others. Born and raised in South Florida, he's a graduate of Wesleyan University and the founder of the Oh Miami Poetry Festival. He lives with his family in Illinois.
Hi, my name is P. Scott Cunningham, and I'm going to be reading some poems from a manuscript titled Self-Portrait as the Eye in Florida, which is the winner of the 2025 Donald Justice Poetry Prize, which is one of the best phone calls I've ever gotten. And so I want to thank Westchester University Poetry Center for hosting this prize and publishing so many incredible books over the years through it. I'm really honored to be part of that tradition. Thank you to Autumn House Press they'll actually be the ones publishing the book. It comes out in the spring of 2026, and they've been amazing to work with. And finally, thank you to Major Jackson, who was the judge of the contest and selected this manuscript. Thank you, Major. So this book is about Miami. It's a love letter to my city. I'm a born and raised South Floridian, and I lived in Miami for about 22 years. When I started writing this book, I wasn't planning on leaving Miami, and so it was mostly just a love letter to my city. And then towards the end of the process, I knew that I was going to be moving here to Illinois, which is where I live now, and the book kind of became an elegy as well. And the last thing I'll say before I start is that it's like wild to me that this book is going to be somehow associated with the name Donald Justice, who is a Miami poet. He was born and raised in Miami. He wrote some of the best poems ever written about Miami. And the first line of one of them is actually tattooed to my arm. I hope you can see that. It reads, "I will die in Miami in the sun." That's the first line of his poem Variations on a Text by Vallejo, which is kind of an homage or a mistranslation of a Cesar Vallejo poem called Black Stone on a White Stone. So just, yeah, I mean, to have anything associated with Donald Justice just blows my mind, and I'm just so thankful. It's really big for me personally. So the first poem I'm going to read is called Florida Snow. The Everglades are burning. I'm 15. I open the window, knock out the screen, and crawl up the tiles to the apex of the roof. Overhead, the black clouds march on hooves from the sunset to the ocean. It's rare for the wind to carry the sugar burns in this direction. I assume the purpose of the fires was to make the sugar sweeter, but besides covering the state in smoke, all they do is make the harvest cheaper. Some men spent a fortune to drain the river, but the cost was all up front. The stalks get so dry sometimes, a piece of lightning starts the fire for them. What's left behind can't help becoming tinder. I think the land will tire of not being water soon. Tonight the air is cold and smells like winter. Ashes fall around me like pieces of the moon. So this is the title poem of the book. I have 3 poems in the book that are self-portrait as the, and the is like one part of the name Florida. So there's self-portrait as the floor in Florida, which I'll read in a little bit, self-portrait as the I in Florida, and then self-portrait as the duh in Florida, which is how, native Floridians pronounce the DA part of Florida. So this is self-portrait as the I in Florida. Pick up a habit, drop it from the sky. Wherever it lands, call me by that name. My sadness comes in waves. I hang it out to dry. My head floats necklace above the tide. Ocean, puddle, pool. Down here, it's all the same. To the shopping carts I stole, I'm not sure why. Where am I from? Where Channel 10 arrives. If there's a body, someone must be blamed, but if the cemetery is empty, nobody has died. The truth is nothing but a well-regarded lie. You can have my reputation, leave me my fame. To get to heaven, a sinner threads the needle's eye. To get to Florida, he turns the key and drives. If the road had intentions, it wouldn't need to be paved. We saved the world, but the legislation died. That I can see myself is what the mirror implies, but if that were true, I wouldn't need a name. Could I have picked a more beautiful place to die? Is that a shuttle blowing up or just the evening sky? So a bunch of the poems in the book are almost like geotagged to a specific location in Miami, where it says in the epigraph the address of where I'm talking about. This one is Northwest 2nd Avenue and 79th Street. So you could pull that up on Google Maps, but the place I'm talking about is gone now. It's called Florida Furniture. There is, however, a beautiful photograph by a Miami-based photographer named Anastasia Samoilova. And if you just Googled her name and Florida Furniture, you would probably find it. It's a gorgeous photograph. So this is called Florida Furniture. You're just around the corner, but I've never been inside. I have no idea what's hanging on your walls, what colors, what tchotchkes. The sign out front says Florida Furniture, but I don't know what that means. Is that a style or merely a statement of fact, since all furniture in Florida is technically Florida furniture? Do you make it yourself? Do you gather it from other places? Has it all been discarded, picked up from alleys and curbs on trash days, maybe touched up, a loose leg tightened, some light upholstery work where the stuffing crawls out? How many lives? How many hands must brush against it before it becomes Floridian, before it abandons association with any other state? How much sun? How much rain? Is it Floridian from conception? Or does it have to break first to feel like it has a home? For it to feel like it belongs in a place that only welcomes people in who are first willing to promise that they'll leave. And this poem is called Swifty Coin Laundry. which is at 13500 West Dixie Highway. The sky rushes in thick as guava, rushes out drenched in perfume, chemicals, and flakes of colors. Nothing stays what it was. Everything unravels, becomes in the tumbling a tinder, an ash of an essence. If you wanted to enter, who could stop you? Open 24 hours is a warning, not a greeting. Even on the days a storm forces boards onto the windows. Days when the wind cuts the power off at the root and it looks from the road like a vault or a crypt. There's still a way in. A missing cinder block, an exposed pipe, a back door left unlocked out of neglect or forgetfulness or hope. So you probably know that in 1992 there was a hurricane named Hurricane Andrew. That was a massively destructive moment in the history of Miami. You probably also know that there's about 100,000 Burmese pythons in the Everglades now who have taken over the ecosystem as the apex predator. And there's a lot of, no one knows exactly how they reached breeding population, but one of the theories is that there was a snake breeding facility in Homestead that was destroyed in Hurricane Andrew and all the snakes escaped. So that's kind of like an origin myth. It's maybe apocryphal, I don't know, but I just really love that story. So I wrote a poem about it, and it's called My Heart, also known as A Python Breeding Facility Destroyed by Hurricane Andrew. It only takes one crack for the wind to slip in and start separating the joints, pieces of the structure lifting off like birds, the writhing abundance spilling out into the gift of rain and grass and muck. What crawls out is forever hungry and doesn't care that no one wants it, doesn't care that no one called it by name. Look again at the shell, fallen to pieces, sitting back there like a false origin. Whoever built it knew exactly what would happen in a storm, knew that despite its construction, the world would blame it for the blood, even though everyone knows it wasn't built to hold that either. It doesn't hold things at all. It's not a container. So next I'm going to read two poems about the Miami International Airport, which if you're not from Miami and you've been there, you probably hate it. But I love the Miami International Airport. What other people find confusing, which I understand, I love because I know all the airports like weird eccentricities and shortcuts that are not announced to the general public and yet exist anyway. So for me, going to the airport in Miami is either a homecoming or it's a moment where I'm reminded that this place is my home because I'm leaving it. So I wrote two poems about the airport. The first is called Taking Off Miami International Airport. The engine screams as if bitten. Even when I can't see them, I believe in mosquitoes, a platoon guarding the sky's nearest edge. The city doesn't want to let me go. I feel the land pulling on my chest. The arrowed tops of invasive pines, the ocean's hand curled into a fist. The bay, intoxicated by the heat, lying passed out in the road. I don't have to like it to be from here. Maybe home just means the last place you touch the earth, the last place a building was raised and you held the gap in your hand like a tooth. Landing Miami International Airport. I step off the plane and smell the humidity, the canal, the marl, the concrete's ubiquity. A day without clouds, that's just the publicity. Water is everywhere. It's called a utility. No horizon in Miami leads toward the city. I stand on the sky and walk toward a balcony. Bodies float. There's no way to bury me. I sleep in the waves, speaking topographically. Storms can destroy us, so we grant them identity. The palms bow their heads as if for nobility. I swim in the sea, some exercise in futility. Salt is my language. Drowning is literacy. They say that we're sinking. I call it humility. One day the sun will explode. I'll miss the humidity. Self-portrait as the floor in Florida. To propose to Christina, I stop at the roadside stand in the median adjacent to the Walgreens to buy her favorite flower, chrysanthemums, but somehow end up with a fist of carnations. How inexpensive they are does not arouse my suspicion. I ask the seller in Spanish, what is the cost of beauty? According to myth, carnations were created by the goddess Diana when she tore out a shepherd's eyes and planted them in the ground. The flowers grew out of his retinas all at once, like a slot machine spitting out coins. Earlier that morning, Christina and I were in a fight, and when she sees the flowers on the dining room table, she assumes they're an apology. Before I can fall to my knees, she asks, "Do you only feel as sorry as carnations?" And this poem is about a billboard. It's been around a long time now, but when it went up, a lot of people called and complained about it. But it's still there. In fact, I think there's more than one of them now. So the first two lines of the poem are the billboard, and then it continues from there. Poem beginning with an infamous Florida billboard. Your wife is hot. Time to fix your air conditioning. Maybe it's also time to tell your wife she's hot. To stare at her with the same intensity that you stare at roadside advertisements. Maybe it's time to stare at yourself. If they put your face on a billboard, would anyone get the joke? Would sales increase or decrease? What would your billboard say? Time to call a back specialist. Time to take a walk. Touch grass, as the kids say. Time to not know what the kids say. Time to read a book beside your wife on a balcony or a porch facing a mountainside. Time to swim in water too dark to see through, water so cold it empties your brain. Keats said the point of diving into a lake is not to describe the lake, but to feel the sensation of water. Keats never had a wife. He died young and destitute, but he died in Rome. This poem's called Frankie Has a Fever. Frankie is our second child, our middle child. I have a poem about the other two kids getting sick too, but I'm not reading them, so apologies to Ada and Eli. This is called Frankie Has a Fever. Frankie has a fever and wakes up shaking so hard, I think this is how mountains collapse. This is how the world is ripped asunder. We give her medicine, but she can't hold it down, meaning it comes back to us, looking just as pink as it left, as if her body were saying, the texture of the world is what determines our language. When her mouth opens again, she asks to be carried to bed, and I lie on the floor beside her, a unicorn for a pillow. Christina unwraps the suppository and uses my phone as a flashlight to perform the tiny operation. This won't hurt, Christina says, which makes Frankie say, ow, only out of habit, and so half-heartedly that I tell myself she's fine. But then I turn and ask the unicorn for a second opinion. And in that unicorn way of his, he says, I wonder if the worst hurt you'll ever know is behind you or waiting up ahead. So this is the last poem I'm going to read. Thank you again to Westchester Poetry Center, to Autumn House Press, and to Major Jackson for making all this possible. I'm so grateful and thrilled to be a part of all this. So this is called Florida Prayer. Raise me up to tear apart the complimentary bread at the Cheesecake Factory. Tuck me into a bed of monstera bushes planted in a median between the off-ramp and the highway, the breeze carrying me from one parking lot to the next, a carpet of asphalt unrolling as my feet descend, like the tiles lighting up beneath Michael Jackson in the video for Billie Jean I watched over and over in a sunken living room. Run me sideways into the guardrail and over the edge into the canal where the pythons will find me soft and pliable as a baby deer. Be my keeper with a leash, my crooked warden with an unchecked fiefdom. Pull me closer with the fierceness of an undertow at a crowded beach when the lifeguard is distracted by the beauty of the light reflecting off the metal detector, sweeping the sand at the whim of a dying retiree. Reject my application for a fair and just amount of years. Donate my remains to the moment when the bartender calls out, last call, and the man in the corner by himself mutters to no one or everyone, I've got nothing left to leave. Show me where the light goes when the neon sparks and the letters darken. Scatter me to the chatter of katydids, the whoop of sirens, the trill of engines calling out in the twilight for the fluorescence of their mates. Be my 6-car pileup, my end place, my cul-de-sac, the shallow strip of shimmer I'll be found face down in, not looking up to the sky, but sipping you, my oracle, through the mouths of my eyes. Wash me away, then pull me back. Drag me across the mass of cement and sawgrass. Flip me, unseason me, soak me in your broken bottles, your spilled colognes, your solemn promises made with fingers crossed. Coat my heart in guava and traffic cones. Toss me like a handful of ships into the horizon's flattened heartbeat. Bury me in your brand new land haphazardly, beside an unreturned shopping cart, a scratched off scratch off ticket, a pair of stonewashed jeans ripped on purpose in a far off factory. And when the ocean comes to claim me, let my bones wash out like bits of plastic. Let them catch on the knobby knees of mangroves and never be found by kids on field trips cleaning up the shore. Let me be the wings of ants cast off in the swarm, littered on the linoleum of a one-bedroom apartment where the cops discover the sliding glass door thrown off its track, a half-naked couple in bed, stabbed to nothing, but still holding one another, still lost in the reverie of being. Florida, you've never saved anyone. Don't start with me. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Janine Joseph, and I'll be announcing the works recognized as the 2025 Spencer Poetry Award winners. I was asked to say a few words about each of the winning pieces, and I wanted to do so before revealing the poems and telling you a little bit about the poets, because all of the poems demonstrate a clarity of image, a complex interiority, a compelling speaker or speakers, a measure of surprise or unexpectedness, a sophisticated handle of the poetic line, and some intangible quality, some intangible spark that let me know this takes the prize. As with love, when you know, you know. I hope you cherish them as much as I do. The first place recipient of the Iris Spencer Award with a prize of $1,500 is Brianna Veerbouth. Brianna Veerbouth is a Lao American poet and scholar whose words are grounded in the principles of unconditional love, care, and joy. They use their art practice to develop questions and spark curiosities about the world around them through the worlds they have experienced. They are passionate about accessible and equitable forms of education that facilitate healing through community-oriented practice. Brianna is currently working on their first collection, Dear Universe and the Uncertain Factors That Create a Life, under the support of Stanford's Institute for Diversity in the Arts Undergraduate Fellowship, and about to graduate with a degree in Asian American Studies and Education. And here is Brianna with their poem, Suti-san.
This is Suti-san Day 8 by Brianna Veerbouth, after Kim Hae-soon's Commute Day 1. On the blue line, your back hits that damn pole. Move your legs. Got used to the kicking and screaming of those kids passing by, but you don't really exist in that train. And did that train ever exist? Do I fit into your mold of who to follow and who to ignore? As soon as you step out, you're distracted by Liana Lahavas and the noises in your head. They keep getting louder, and those footsteps became silent. 3501 pound. A man comes up behind you, but you do not notice. He thinks of how to hurt you, but instead presses his weight against the door, the only thing in between life and death. This wood door, 2 types of locks, the inability to scream for help. You watch this all happen as if you're in third-person point of view, but that's what it is like to feel fear. Your gaze now slowly remembering how to say no. Fear is much bigger than the silence. Fear is much larger than when you say no for a second time. He leaves, but you cannot leave the foot of your bed that you now cry upon. Pitiful, how all you can think of is how to tell your make-believe lover, I almost died, again, because. Only days ago, you slit your wrists just enough to not see blood. So what's the deal with scary men who think of ways to hurt you? Black hair, baggy jeans, strapless dress with the pink boa top. Didn't my umbrella look scary to you? You open your eyes and you're headed towards Lak Song at 8 p.m. It hasn't happened yet. Therefore, we pretend those scary men have never thought of ways to hurt you. Thank you.
The second place recipients of the Iris Spencer Award with a prize of $500 is Charlotte Decker. Charlotte Decker is a poet from Downingtown, Pennsylvania. She is a senior at Westchester University, where she is pursuing a degree in English secondary education with a creative writing minor. Thanks to her early exposure to creative writing classes, Charlotte has been writing poetry since she was in high school, and she hopes to someday teach high school creative writing classes of her own. And here is Charlotte with her poem, I Can't Give Up Any More of Myself.
Hi, my name is Charlotte Decker. I am a senior at Westchester University, and this is a ghazal I wrote called I Can't Give Up Any More of Myself. It's kind of about dealing with the fact that I'm coming into womanhood and kind of the way that motherhood and womanhood are synonymous, and the fact that I don't know if I'm okay with that. I don't know how I feel about that for myself. So yeah, this is my ghazal. I can't give up any more of myself. Rushing through the crisp air, gaining speed, milestones that float in the mist pass quickly and you can't pull the brakes. I'm sorry, that's just time, baby. You imagine your perfect life, a plane, a new continent, a language foreign to your ears, saying life could be a dream, an endless exploration, baby. Even as you age into your skin, your soul settles into its permanent setting, your floorboards get creaky. You can't imagine your life with a baby. A party, you with itchy skin, rattles and bottles to decorate tables in jubilation of your cousin's new little girl, her soon coming baby. Songs about motherhood, books about not wanting a child, men in media calling women useless without the shield of a baby. You want to regain what you somehow missed, the feeling of being aimless, of containing wonder, of getting to wander. Are you sure you were once a baby? You're upset at nothing, maybe at everything, drifting and drowning and taking on too much salt water. Charlotte, snap out of it, baby.
The first place recipient of the Myong Haiku Award with a prize of $1,500 is Noor Bukhari. Noor Bukhari is a Pakistani-American writer based in Pennsylvania. They are studying literature at Westchester University of Pennsylvania as an undergraduate student. And here is Noor with their poem, Albumin.
Hello, my name is Noor Bukhari. I'm an undergraduate student at Westchester University pursuing my bachelor's in English literature. This is my haiku, Albumin. The wind is so strong, a bird's nest rocks off balance. My baby wakes up. Thank you.
The second place recipient of the Myong Haiku Award with a prize of $500 is Angie Chue. Andy Chue was born in 2004 in Philadelphia. He is an undergraduate student at UC Berkeley and the author of Slow Hot. His writing has been featured by the Asian American Writers Workshop, the Korea Policy Institute, South Dakota Review, and the Harlem International Film Festival, among others.
Hello, I'm Andy Choi, and I'm a student at UC Berkeley. This is my haiku, Flotsam. I sift through landscapes, metaphors, until all's lost and perfectly clear.
The winner of the Rhina P. Espaillat Award with a prize of $1,000 is Leslie Lopez. Leslie Lopez is a Mexican-American poet from Gurnee, Illinois. She is currently in her third year at the Milwaukee Institute of Art and Design, where she is pursuing a bachelor's degree in communication design. She first consciously fell in love with poetry and reading after reading the book Film for Her and finding herself reflected in the words on the page. Through her work, she aims to better understand and discover herself as well as her cultural identity. And here is Leslie with her poem Matchbox, Caja de Cerillas.
Hi, my name is Leslie Lopez, and I'm from Gurnee, Illinois, but I go to school in Milwaukee. And my poem is called Matchbox or Caja de Cerillas. My depression is the box of matches that I carry with me everywhere in my brown jacket pocket. It is waiting for any sort of tension in order to act as a catalyst for action. It is waiting for the trigger that will allow itself to be engulfed in flames. I'm not sure when or where I first got the box, but I got it one day and never found out how to get rid of it. Occasionally, I'm able to forget about its existence. Other times, the box rattles in my jacket, making a steady chug noise, demanding my attention. Mi depresión es la caja de cerillas que llevo conmigo a todas partes en el bolsillo de mi chaqueta marrón. Está esperando cualquier tipo de tensión para actuar como un catalizador para la acción. Está esperando el detonante que la permita ser envuelto en fuego. No estoy seguro de dónde saqué la caja, pero un día la conseguí y nunca supe cómo deshacerse de él. De vez en cuando soy capaz de olvidarme de su existencia. Otras veces la caja traquetea mi chaqueta, haciendo un ruido constante, exigiendo mi atención.
The recipient of the Sonnet Award with a prize of $1,000 is Darcy Combs. Darcy Combs is a mixed Japanese-American student and poet. A is always drawn to the absurd, grimy, and romantic across artistic mediums. When not writing, one can find him watching films with their sibling, preferably at the Music Box Theater. A born and bred Chicagoan, A couldn't think of a better place to live. After completing her degree, A plans to continue her passion for literature as a high school English teacher. And here is Darcy with her poem, Dirt Bikes and My Father, the Somnambulist.
My name is Darcy Combs. I'm from Chicago, and my poem is titled Dirt Bikes and My Father, the Somnambulist. This poem was written about a story that he told me when I was younger, and it's one of the many vivid tales that has stuck with me since he passed. This is for him and my family. It was the night after a heavy storm. Sweet liquor seeped into muddy tracks, the crowds and flies left in a lazy swarm. My dad, just 13, padded over tacks, shards of glass scattered ghosts of screams with teeth shattered in pieces. His feet collected dirt and fresh scars. Something surfaced beneath the slumber. His consciousness connected. Pinched awake, the earth had drawn enough blood to rest itself, post-meal haziness. The boy's hazel eyes absorbed the rough dawn sifting through the horizon. Restless, he returned to a beer-soaked sleeping bag, lit a wet cig, watched the smoke zig and zag. Thank you.
The recipient of the Villanelle Award with a prize of $1,000 is Felina Mukovic. And here is Felina with their poem, Self-Portrait as Psychrolutes.
Hello, thank you so much for watching. I just want to say quickly, forgive me for being awkward on camera because I truly think it's one of the most uncomfortable experiences a human can endure. I also want to say something quick about my poem. I truly am flattered to be chosen to win this award for my poem. And I really am deeply emotionally affected by the fact that somebody found something in my poetry, whatever it might have been. Because I think one of my worst fears as a writer is not reaching people. And especially when you approach ideas that are so complex and dark and difficult to grasp, which I think is exactly what this poem encompasses. And you might read it as an ode to a blobfish, which is what I'm referring to in the poem, but I would not quite look at it like that. But whatever you find, thank you so much. And this is my poem. It's called Self-Portrait as a Psychology. They should have left me 1,000 meters in, with decrepit eyes guiding the ripped up bits of flesh. Here is where I don't know how to live. But priming in a net undrown my body till it sinks. Pass me by a fishing line where a turtle wings its net. They should have left me 1,000 meters in. Preserve me in fluorescent light that burns the blistering skin, misshapen, pale, and prodded, a body consumed by head. Here is where I don't know how to live. A breathless, sullen face decompressed into pink, masks a ruptured mass of organs molten into brain. They should have left me 1,000 meters in, with my own hideousness now mistaken as harmless. You've never known me to myself undead. Here is where I don't know how to live. Under weightlessness or detritus for all decay. Marcellus marks on me, patient day 30, a body led just by legs. They should have left me 1,000 meters in, because here is where I don't know how to live.
And finally, I had the great honor of judging the Wil Mills Chapbook Award, an award that comes with a prize of $500. I selected Dawn Dupler's What a House Wants is Lightning.
Dawn Dupler is the Winter 2025 winner of the Baltimore Review Prose Poetry Contest, 2024 winner of the Crab Creek Review Poetry Prize, and the 2023 winner of MacGuffin's Poet Hunt. She has been nominated for both Pushcart and Best of the Net Awards, awarded honorable mention in the 2024 Vivian Shipley Poetry Contest, and semifinalist for the 2023 Red Wheelbarrow Poetry Prize. Her work has been featured on the buses and trains of St. Louis's Metrolink, in the Chicago Quarterly Review, Natural Bridge, and other journals. She is also an associate editor of December Literary Journal. Dawn spent the beginning of her career as an engineer, then went on to earn an MFA in writing. She lives in the St. Louis metro area.
And here is Dawn to read selections from her winning chapbook, What a House Wants is Lightning.
Hi, my name is Dawn Dupler, and I'm here to read a couple poems from my chapbook, What a House Wants is Lightning. I'd like to say thank you to WCU's Poetry Center team, Janine Joseph and Kane Spencer as well. And just a little background, I grew up in central and southern Ohio. It's Rust Belt, coal, and the hills play a large part, as well as family, play a large part in the poems in this book. And we just, without further ado, just go into the first poem, Sacrament. If only we could place our dead in the basement, slide them into drawers beneath the stairs, arms folded like a favorite crew neck sweater, the red one worn at the elbows, its moth-bitten hem. We could keep their bodies pressed and creased sharp, bring them out for holidays like an Easter tablecloth, the one stained with mom's gravy, its brownness floating on top of woven pastels and prayers. We'll sit stoic during uneasy words, cancer, comfort, hospice, pass the platter of old bones, napkins to cover our open throats. All we claim to be true is truest at the table, and at our table, what we're forgiven is sanctified by candle and flame. We'll teach our daughters to bring up mom on rainy evenings to sit on the porch, watch broken pastures on fire, how smoke and ash blur our horizon, how green returns greener in spring. I can hold her hand, remind her war rationing has ended, that sugar once hoarded behind the family radio now sits on the counter, and Apple Crisp cools by the window. When it's time, we'll wash her body again, dress her in linen all smoothed and ironed, just as she liked it, such ceremony as we put her away. For this next poem, it's really kind of a love letter to my daughter who's graduating college this month. And I think you'll get it as soon as you hear the title. I run into my daughter and her boyfriend in the Walgreens parking lot holding a prescription for birth control pills. And I thank God she's on it. 21 next week, and last year she dated a girl. Back then, a friend joked I didn't have to worry about her getting pregnant. I just wanted her unharmed and happy. But can anyone ever be both? One day she said, "Surprise, I really like a guy." And now he stands next to her and she's laughing. Looks a bit like me when she laughs. Even more like me when I had my first lover. Too innocent to know there'd be a second or a fourth. I don't want to tell her how much it hurt when he left for a job in California. Don't want to tell her how these things will happen, like storms we can't outrun. She leans in to hug me in her Rutgers sweatshirt, the one that belonged to my father. I always told him I didn't want kids. He died before I changed my mind. How cruel his missing these parking lot hugs. She's on her way back to her apartment in the city, to her college, where she learns science I can't explain. Still, I ask about her work, and she says she's making mutants in the lab, putting extra genes into bacteria, says it's a good thing. I don't want to tell her how often plans go wrong, no matter the intention. Years ago, I got off the pill and miscarried. So many things have to go right, the doctor said. It's a wonder anyone gets born. But that didn't make the ghost feeling go away. I hope I was honest when I taught her to believe in God, in thinking old hymns could ward off wild beasts, in believing she could see me again after I'm gone. If I was wrong, I'll have no way to say I'm sorry. Thank you so much.
I'll be sharing 3 poems from my collections, Driving Without a License and Decade of the Brain. Both of these collections are drawn from my lived experiences as a formerly undocumented immigrant from the Philippines. In 2008, I was involved in a car crash that, wiped out my memory for a time, and wiped out my memory at a time when I was applying to be a naturalized citizen of this country. This first poem is called Driving Without a License, and it's the title poem of my debut collection of the same name. Driving Without a License. S used to take me down to Cajalco at midnight because I needed to learn how to drive in the dark. He'd pull the Beetle onto the gravel shoulder, kill the engine and the lights, and tell me to get into the seat and start from the beginning. It was worse when it rained. I could never see how or where to slide the goddamn effing key. Okay, he'd say, and again, okay, when I'd crunch the tires around and back onto the road. Watch the white lines to your left, he'd say, when we hugged the lake. The rights, when a car passed with its high beams blinding us both. What was that tune he'd tap against the assist grip when I'd veered too close to the guardrails? He never missed a beat of it. Remember my yellow bug? He once asked over drinks. We hadn't spoken in a long while, but I'd heard he sold it because something in it kept seizing, that he, for the last time, coasted down the hill on inertia and sheer luck. This next poem has a title that is a running title, which means the title is also the first line of the poem. And it's called The Night Before You Are Naturalized. The night before you are naturalized, we practice an ordinary life. Fresh off my flight, you ask if I have eaten, and I ask you if you are hungry. And we pull into the lot of the nearest restaurant that has something for you and something for me. It's almost spontaneous. We just have to make a quick call to say they can eat on ahead without us. You are seated to face me, and out of habit, I face the window that overlooks the corner and reach of street. I order what I've missed most, and you listen for what is good here, then order what comes recommended. It takes me through the appetizers to not be distracted by the moment's poetry. How I might write a poem titled like that magazine's tagline, "They're just like us," for example. Or a poem set here, against the partition, where I erase you by calling you alien relative in every instance where the you appears, and I disappear behind the petitioner. In a bit of verse, not really for us, but for the paparazzi reading. I focus when I see you fumbling with your grin, your front flipper tooth suddenly chipped in half, which you hand me when I ask what it is that you have done. Our dinner bowls arrive, but we are busy rehearsing your backup face for tomorrow's pictures. When we finally eat, a silence settles that isn't silence. You just won't smile, you say, and show me the closed beam you'll make. And I say, I'll figure it out. Don't worry. I'll fix it. And I do. With a needle and a glue, I bond it. And this final poem that I'll be reading for you is called Decade of the Brain. It's the title poem of the collection, my second collection of the same name. And I've decided to read it because the day that I'm here recording this, it's very windy outside, and it seems to be completely fitting to also record a poem that has a great wind. This poem opens with an epigraph that describes census-designated places. And it's an epigraph that is just a sentence or two that comes from a Wikipedia entry. And this is called Decade of the Brain. The boundaries of a CDP have no legal status and may not always correspond with the local understanding of the area or community with the same name. Wikipedia, census-designated place. Alone from my porch, through the thick grass, and into the street suffused with mammatus light, I walk. No birds call, but the gale pulls chimes from the wood. Days and nights with the movers pass, and I make a career of anticipating on the buckled blacktop a tornado to descend like a spine and distort the field. It is mine now. A yard among yards where neighbors hedge their cars crosswise and the steel blooms at solar noon. Mine. The salaried life my parents scrounged for. One can at a time in the shopping cart we raucous for miles down graveled roads like these. I can see it through the glare. Pedley, California, 1991. My first fall in the decade of understanding and discovering ourselves as Americans. The little we knew, we balanced on a wobbly, folding wicker chair, changing the channels by hand with a knob until the electricity shut off and the pool scourged with mosquitoes. Clear still, the ringing of pennies rained from their pockets into the 3-foot-tall glass jar centered in the home like a hearth. I can see it, though my searches load our disappearance from the map. In history, we exist only in the count, our bodies a record of a place absorbed by ink. But I was witness. I watched their teeth, their hair fall out in clenches I temper now, here, on this plain far and away from each of them, where decades have done nothing but landscape the landscape. Still, they are here as I am, landlocked as I remember it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your passion for poetry and for attending the 2025 Spencer Poetry Awards at West Chester University.